Hi there, this is just a short recording describing the creative process of the billboard I created for Arts, Furniture, Flooring, Mattresses, and Appliances Company located in Malta, Montana, which is about an hour down the highway from home for me, which is Glasgow, Montana. This is my second painting project in Malta, and it was such a successful experience and one that I'm excited to explain the entire process of to you. So what you're looking at in this slide is the van with the actual logo that inspired the design. Initially, the client and I spoke about using some of the palette that is part of the artwork, and we tossed around ideas of incorporating some furniture which the store represents. But eventually, we decided to stick with a palette that had more to do with the historic billboard paintings that currently exist in downtown Malta. Granted, that all came back to looking at some of the signage that has already been in play, and so I utilized that in the actual design itself. This was my first day on the job. It's always exciting to get a chance to start to measure out, and I always tape my space. I feel like having the overall parameter really helps, especially when I'm blocking in the backgrounds. This is my first time using a scissor lift, so I had a quick 10-minute tutorial and figured it out from there. The first weekend was really successful, getting the big black outline in place and the background itself. And you'll see my trusty sidekick, Maggie, who mostly stayed where she was supposed to, although she did greet quite a few of the customers when they came and went from the store itself. All of the project involved quite a bit of taping, and so this was showing the border that you saw in one of the earlier photos. The border itself really created like an edge that helped define the visual parameters. And in this case, the client and myself were both interested in trying to match the aesthetic of historic billboards. One of the interesting challenges to this project was the brick surface. I'd never painted on a historic brick surface before, and most of the brickwork itself required 2 to 3 layers of paint just to get into all of the old mortar. So that's what you see in this video, is me coming back and filling in the mortar itself. And then I did one final roll over the entire thing. The client and I chose a flat for the background itself, and then a semi-gloss for the surface. And again, always using this basic watercolor design in any of my work, the watercolor informs the direction of the final project. Most of my evenings I was able to go over to Sleeping Buffalo, a local hot springs, and that was really helpful when I wanted to recharge and get back at it with a fresh face. The lettering itself is one of the most challenging components to signs, especially when you're trying to match a client's lettering that they've been using in all of their advertising up to date. And so what you see in this series of photos is me freehanding the original lettering in place. And then what I resolved to do was compare a photo that I went and took on the van itself, and cut and pasted the photo of the actual arts lettering from the van with photos of the lettering on the building to try to match it as closely as possible. I think that it's important to try to make sure the angles are as accurate as humanly possible, because that accuracy and that meticulous attention to detail is what brings me more business. The weather got pretty interesting, and one of my last afternoons there, I had to call it quits early and get some dinner, which resulted in my husband and son surprising me with a quick trip over. They came over and stayed in the camper with me that weekend, brought the e-bike, and we got to have some family fun in the middle of my work weekend. Most of the work I did on this project was pretty much on the weekends themselves, because I have 2 kids in school.
Where are you?
And it's just not possible to do all of the chaos of school routine and also commute and stay in a camper 70 miles from home. So I made the most of my weekends, and when the family could visit, we made the most of that time together, which made for really memorable experiences. This is showing some of the lettering in the main section of the billboard. And again, every single section I take off the large component where the word is going to go. Then I come back and do the measurements of the lettering in the individual place. What you don't really see in any of these photos is the math that goes into taking the lettering from the samples that I'm generating in some of the font generators I use online, and then basically freehanding that onto the space itself. So I basically create like a ratio of the small inches of the measurement onto like the large inches on the wall itself. And then sometimes I draw it in. In this case, that was really helpful. Just getting like a basic outline speeded up my creative process when I went to paint, especially with the cursive and wanting to retain the line quality and have consistency with my letters. There were so many different words in this billboard where I really wanted the lettering to be consistent, and I think that if I had not pre-drawn the outlines, it would have probably slowed my process and made it difficult to match. Even still, with the measuring and the pre-drawing of the lettering itself, I did find that I had to come back and give the lettering itself a second session where I basically fine-tuned different aspects, like where in some cases an L would be a couple inches longer, or like the curve of an A would swoop a little bit too low in the left corner or too wide in the right corner. Those little itty bitty details, when they are not addressed, I think create like visual interrupts that aren't necessarily the type of quality that I would like my work to have. And so I tend to be very, very obsessive compulsive about paying attention to all of the details and making sure that when I come back on the second session with the letters, I'm hitting it with a very critical eye. I did find that in this case, having a white edge on the big lettering really helped it to pop off of the background. And sometimes in any of my sign work, I find that just taking the time to do one extra session can make all the difference between a completely satisfying project and something that like lacks that extra little bit of pop. So as a professional practice, I really try to take the time to have critical engagement with the artwork. And in this case, the client, Julie, who I worked for, was absolutely delightful because we were able to bounce ideas back and forth in real time. And I was able to stay in the parking lot of her business so I could pop my head in the back door and visit with her in real time. And I absolutely loved this project. Arts Furniture was such a delight because it challenged me to push myself fully into the sign space as an artist. I was surprised how much of my art knowledge came in handy when it came to creating a product that my client was thrilled with. Thank you, Julie. Thank you, Arts Furniture. Thank you, Malta. That's a wrap.